What a day in the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and we're excited to bring you more action from it as we get into the final day of group play and get into the round of 32 in just a matter of 24 hours. Welcome to everyone watching or listening around the world. I'm Spencer Thompson alongside Drew Williamson. We got T-Bull joining us yet again. Proud to be with you from various parts of the world. And T-Bull, you mentioned it last time of how you enjoy talking to us. And we enjoy talking to you, not just because it's a France win, but because you bring a lot of good insights and a lot of great stuff to talk about. So let's get right into it. Norway, France, a 4-1 victory for the French national team, and Usman getting a hat trick in the first half. It took him only 32 minutes to get that, basically averaging a goal every 10 minutes. And I know Drew is going to get into the decisions that Norway made heading into this game, but still, Thibault, from the French national team perspective, a great win, a great capitalization to have them clinch the group outright at that point, and really just this reminds me of Team USA in their Australia matchup where they didn't need Pulisic to win, where France didn't really need Mbappe to win. I mean, he was creating some chances, but considering the fact that he almost had a hat trick earlier on and has been contributing goals throughout, it's a testament again to how deep this French national team is, and how if you're any of the teams going into the round of 32, you are either do not want to face against them, or you're lucky that you're in a different part of the bracket from the French national team.
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, so it was a great game for France, but also with some doubts. Like I can explain. Yesterday in France, it was yesterday, sorry, but for the third match confirmed like the two faces of France. On one end, we have we are lucky to have an irresistible attack. Like honestly, as you say, Dembele in 25 minutes he scored a hat trick. But on the other side, we also have like some lacks in the defense side, in the defensive line. Uh, Yesterday, like Mike Maignan stopped a penalty, but it was really bad shot. Some defensors like Dayot Upamecano, it was the first time, but it wasn't a great game from him. And most of all, Theo Hernandez, he was like weak. He was like the weak point of France on the left side. But we have the luck, like France is lucky to have these incredible offensive players. Dembele scored. He's only the third French player to score a trick in the World Cup, just after Just Fontaine and Kylian Mbappe, the two best scorers in World Cup. So it shows also like he's assuming he's taking responsibilities.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think for France, you did what you were supposed to do. You got 9 points from a possible nine, and I loved the way France came out and took control of this game. They didn't really let the Norway coaching decision distract them from getting the job done. I think their plan all along was to win this group, and they did it pretty convincingly in every single match. I mean, they won the first one 3-1. They won the second one 3-0, and then they won this one 4-1. So very good score lines, very good goal difference, and this was expected from a team as talented as France is, and we all know that they're going to make a deep run. And like you mentioned, though, they did struggle a little bit in certain areas, bit confused at the back sometimes. That Norway goal, I really didn't understand what France was doing. I mean, it was right after Dembele had scored his second. I'm not sure why nobody from France it's like they didn't really expect Norway to be where they were, and then they shot and it went just right past the goalkeeper. I don't know. I didn't understand that, but overall, a good win for France. I could get into the decision making of Norway to rest all of their starters. Originally, I hated it. I thought it was soft. I thought that you have a chance to win Group I. You have a chance to play one of, if not the best teams in the entire tournament. And you elect to bench your players because you just are like, well, let's just throw in the towel. There's no chance we're going to beat France, so might as well rest our players. And so originally I hated it. I thought it was soft. I thought it was weak. But the more I've thought about it today, the more I semi see where the Norway head coach was coming from when he made this decision, simply because I think that they realized that this was going to be a game of a battle, regardless of who won. And I'm not saying France still wouldn't have won if Norway played their starters, but I think it would have been a battle. And I think the Norway head coach realized that and said, France is already going to give us a tough task anyways. We're already through. The knockout rounds are 3 days away. Norway plays in 3 days. Maybe we should give guys like Erling Haaland and Martin Odegaard and Sorloth some rest in preparation for that. And also their side of the bracket now playing Ivory Coast might be a little bit better than France's side. I know France has Sweden in the round of 32, but their next round matchup is most likely going to be Germany, which is going to prove a lot harder than people think. So I kind of see where the coach is coming from. I still view it as a little bit of a soft.
Couple things on this. For one, it could have easily been a 4-2 matchup. I mean, when you had Jorgen Strand Larsen missing a penalty kick at the 50th minute, pretty much within 5 minutes coming out of the halftime break, like this could have easily been a 3-2 game at that point, which would have been a lot more close, a lot more intense, and we would have been probably talking about what were the coaching decisions on this. And I agree, especially because it's weird. I get why FIFA did this in terms of spacing out games, but you have some groups where you were incentivized to win your group to get extra days of rest, whereas you have others that your incentive was looking at who you're playing, if you or have the luxury of knowing it at that point, or do you have a preference in which stadium you're going to play in? Because specifically for Group I, both teams play on the 30th. So you're absolutely right. There wasn't a rest advantage on that. And it was a question of, do you want to play in New York, New Jersey, or do you want to play in Dallas? And I wonder if that maybe had an effect on it too, because Dallas is climate controlled. You've got, especially
Yes.
in the, we're getting into the really hot summer months over in North America, and this is where it's a little bit of a strategy move, because for Norway, they have Dallas. Now they go back to New Jersey if they win on July 5th. So they go back to the host place of the final from that. And then they play in Miami, and then they would go back to Atlanta for an indoor side. But France has all outdoor stadiums throughout the rest of their journey. They've got against Sweden in New York. They win, they play in Philadelphia. If they win, then they go to Boston, and then both of the semis are in an indoor stadium. So I wonder if that had a little bit of a factor on that as well. But I mean, regardless, benching all 10 of your starters, like even the United States, and we'll get into it later in the episode, they only had, I think it was around like 5 or 6 of their starters were on the bench. So it just seemed to go for a full 10. Now, you can also look at it as valuable minutes, something for the Norwegian team to test their depth and get them valuable minutes that could come into play later on if players get injured. But it's just one of the weird things that I haven't seen in a while. But I do agree, Drew. I think Ivory Coast as an opening round opponent in the round of 32 is probably very favorable. But Ivory Coast has also had a little bit of luck on their side in this bit of a Cinderella run on that sort of thing. And we'll obviously talk about Cabo Verde as well, and the magic that they've had going into this tournament as well. But I don't know, T-Bull, do you think Ivory Coast is a team to push to the side in a way?
No, I think they can do really well. I watched a game. It was against Germany. Yes, they were in the same
Yes,
same
one of them,
group.
yeah.
Yes, it was a great game. I thought, wow, Ivory Coast is going to win, but they also have like big lacks. Sometimes when they are tired, they play like poorly. But it was an interesting game. So I think honestly, for Norway, it won't be as easy. But for France, like as you say, the team only has 3 days to recover, and the game after too. So it will be 2 games, sorry, in 6 days. So
I
will be
also,
the
I also
strategy.
I also thought it was slightly strange that Erling Haaland, after the game against Senegal, when it asked in a post game interview, "Hey, how are you looking forward to this matchup with France?" He basically just said, "Ah, well, France is a great team. They're probably going to beat us, and they're probably going to
Yeah.
win. They're probably going to win the whole tournament." Which, from a guy like Erling Haaland, really surprised me when he said that, because it's like, I mean, it's almost like I thought he was using reverse psychology for a second, but then when they benched their players, I was like, man, maybe he really meant that. Maybe he, I don't know. It just it was a strange approach from Norway for sure, but I can't say whether it was strategic or not in terms of the bracket placement. That would have to in my mind had factored in somehow a little bit, but yeah, still strange.
I'm actually doing the math on this, gentleman. So Norway, yes, 3 days before the rest of the round of 32. Same with France. If
Mhm.
they win from the round of 16, they have 4 days of rest. France would only have three because they play on the 4th of July. Norway plays on the 5th. From there, if they go to the quarterfinals, France has 4 days of rest before they play on the 9th. Norway has a gap between their match on the 5th and to the 11th. So they have 5 days extra of rest on it. So now that I'm looking at this in a lot of the different factors, not only that, but the quadrant of the bracket. Now, I'm not dismissing Brazil. I'm not dismissing Japan because that's who is facing them in the round of 16 if they win. And I'm also not dismissing the teams like Mexico is the other team in their quadrant of the bracket right now. Whoever wins Group L, I mean, Ghana or England, that's some tough match. If you think, even if Croatia somehow manages to win in there. So at the end of the day, it's not necessarily as easy of a gauntlet, but you also look on the other side. You've got Germany and Paraguay in that section. You've got South Africa, who's managed to get in there. The Netherlands, Morocco are on that other quadrant there. So I think there's a lot of 3D chess that was being played on this kind of decision. But I think end of the day on this, it's we'll see if it plays out. That's all I could say on the matter of whether or not it was more beneficial to win the group or to take second place on that aspect. But it's interesting when coaches kind of take those sort of dynamics and think about those things. But again, regardless, for France, I mean, a great victory for them, outright 9 points, managed to show everybody how dominant they are in the group. And to be honest with you guys, I think this group of especially with it being one of the 8 groups where 3 teams advance, I think each of these teams have a reasonable chance to make a deep run. I'm not going to say to win the entire tournament because I don't want to get ahead of myself on there, but France, Norway, Senegal, I could see any of these teams being in the Final Four, or
Great
even
team.
going into either of these teams, one of them at least going into the final. Like especially the Senegal team, their strikers are dangerous, and we'll talk about it on the recap match and such. But
But they
I
concede
think
goals.
for and
Senegal,
I don't
they
know. I don't know how you feel about this, T-Bowl, but for Group I, for France to be able to beat every one of them, I think
yeah,
iron sharpens iron.
and it's only the second time in France history. The last time it was in 1998 when France won in France the World Cup, his first World Cup. But no, I think for Senegal it's maybe a little bit too optimistic because they conceded a lot of goals. Like to go far into tournament, I think they have to improve a lot their defense. So maybe it could be tough.
Way to rub it in our face that you guys won all your group phases when you hosted, especially with how we're going to talk about the United States in the last one. Leave it to D-Bowl to be able to sneak that one in there. Anyways, congratulations to France. They get the victory over Norway. They clinch their group, and they will face off against Sweden in the round of 32. And as for
And after
Norway,
the program is tough. After it could be like probably Germany and eventually Netherlands. So the 2 other best attacking teams so far with 10 goals, such as France. So big battles
yeah.
coming. Yes.
Yep, there's no easy path to get into the further rounds of the elimination phase. And then for Norway, they take second place in the group. They face off against Ivory Coast in Dallas coming up in a couple of days. T-Ball, always good to see you. I'm sure we'll be able to talk after the next France result as we get deeper
Yeah,
into the
for
tournament.
sure.
Always appreciate you joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a good day. Thank you.
Of course.
That's T-Bull, one of our good friends of the podcast. All right, let's continue along here. Ecuador, Germany, a matchup over in the New York, New Jersey Stadium. By the way, one of the other significant aspects we talked about, Tori Penzo, Brooke Mayo, and Catherine Nesbitt from the United States being the first full female on-field crew to work a World Cup match, and they continued that sort of trend in another matchup with Ecuador in Germany. And holy crap, Drew.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I mean, we were talking about at the beginning of this tournament going in of Ecuador being a dark horse, and then they're just shot in the dark. No one is going to count them at this point because of how much they've been struggling to try and even get a win. I mean, it almost felt like Belgium in how they were struggling to try and get at least a point or a goal on there. Actually, that was exactly like Belgium, where they didn't end up scoring any goals until their third game of group play. But Germany, I mean, they still won the group. They still managed to come out on top with that. But my goodness, Ecuador needed the win to stay alive, and they did in great fashion. I mean, Germany opened things up with Leroy Sané, and Kai was going to join us tonight. He had other things come up, but Nilson Angelo managing to tie things up for Ecuador, and then it was a wee standstill throughout the majority of the game until Gonzalo Plata in the 77th minute managed to knock one into the back of the net and hold steady, and Ecuador managed to punch its ticket to the round of 32. They did with only possessing the ball 39% of the time, with only 3 shots on target. Is this just an Ecuador team that had a Cinderella run, or was this a Germany collapse?
I think that it was honestly a little mix of both. I think that Ecuador finally found their form and finally reminded the nation that, this this is the team that we should have been in the first 2 games. Yeah, they looked a lot more complete. They looked a lot more solid at the back. I thought Germany played a little sloppy this game. They didn't look too sure of themselves. They turned the ball over a ridiculous amount of times in the midfield. It's just they could not link up passes how we saw them in the first 2 games, and that looked really concerning for Germany. But the most concerning thing, and I was actually looking forward to talking to Kai about this because he mentioned this in the first Germany game that we covered. The play of Manuel Neuer, it concerned me a lot. He really showed his age in this game. To me, he had a terrible game, especially on that second goal that they gave up. It was not pretty. Neuer has got to either push that out, or he can't allow what happened to happen, in my opinion. And I think that he showed his age a lot. Even on the first goal, he kind of reacted late too. I'm not taking credit away from Ecuador. Ecuador deserved to win that game, but it was a bit of a German collapse, but there's no need to panic. Germany already won the group. There's no need to, go into a spiral or anything like that. This was more to me about Ecuador finally coming out of their shell and finally looking like the team that we all expected them to be coming into the tournament.
You think Oliver Baumann or Alexander Neubel, you think they're better at this point than Neuer?
Yes, but I don't think that they'll change Neuer, if you want me to be honest with you. It's just the name. It's the name. It's almost, it's just, you don't want to take him out because of his namesake. I mean, Neuer was so dominant and such a great goalkeeper for so long that, it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, what I will say on that is, if you looked at it just on what day are we now on? If you looked at that just on Thursday, then yeah, if we were doing this recap on Thursday, I would say, yeah, as a goaltender, I hate this stuff. But we got another match we have to recap from Friday's action where there was an even worse goaltending mistake that was made that cost the game. But you're right. It's age certainly shows, especially when you have to be quick on your feet and quick on the reflexes and being able to make yourself big. Which we'll talk about that and later on in the show. But yeah, it's they're gonna keep the name. I mean, and the fact that both teams had 3 shots on target. Germany had more total, 11-7, but the fact that that both these teams had the same percentage of successful shots at 33%. It shows you that not only was Ecuador taking more opportunities that they could, but it's also showing you that Germany was just not able to get through. And the goaltending on the other side, by comparison, from Ecuador's Hernan Galindez, it just shows you that when you have that contrast comparison of the same amount of shots, the same basically body of work in a way, it shows a huge contrast on there. But I mean, for Germany, they still won the group. I mean, they still managed to escape even with Ecuador, and it wasn't really one of those games that Germany needed to win, like grand scheme of
No,
things,
no, and
like a lot
I
of these other groups. But it's one of those that's concerning, especially when they're going against a Paraguay team that is really frustrated with the way they finished their group play.
Yeah, it's kind of like Germany came into the game thinking, we don't have to necessarily win this, like with the mindset of, and that's what's unfortunate about, how this tournament is you win your first 2 games and you're most likely already won your group at that point. So you come out that 3rd game and you got to make decisions. Some goes like how Norway went when they're just like, yeah, we're just going to bench everybody. We're already through. It doesn't matter. Germany kind of looked a little sloppy, like in the sense of like they played like they didn't need to win the game, in my.
Yeah, and it showed because Ecuador took advantage of it and they punched their ticket into the round of 32. And man, Ecuador right now, if my math is correct on where they're supposed to go, so they punched their ticket. I'm trying to make sure on the bracket here because I'm trying to remember if this was a 3rd place yeah, okay, that's why it's not showing up yet. So yeah, because we'll talk about Ivory Coast and the great things they did, but Ecuador still doesn't know who their opponent is, but they are sitting right now at 2nd in the best of the 8 3rd place teams. So congratulations to them for proving a lot of people wrong and that they could still be the dark horse that a lot of people have been talking about in this FIFA World Cup. Speaking of which, Curacao and Ivory Coast. Man, there is nobody that I know in the media side, not between us, colleagues, anyone that has been covering this World Cup, that would tell you win and in Ivory Coast and Curacao in the final days of group play. Like, nobody would have told you that. What would have happened is most people would believe, yeah, if they're playing for their first win in their World Cup history or first draw, yeah, I could see that. But to get to the round of 32, nobody would tell you that. Which I didn't look at it, but I wonder what the ticket costs were for Curacao, Ivory Coast. Like, I wonder how reasonable those were at Philadelphia. But Nicolas Pepe opened things up in the 7th minute and then scored again in the 64th minute. And Curacao they just looked defeated. It looked like it was just towards the end of their run. And Ivory Coast possessed the ball 64% of the time. And Curacao, they tried at least. They were out shooting Ivory Coast 11-7 on total attempts. But it was not enough. Ivory Coast knew that if they won, they would get 2nd place in the group. They would head to the round of 32 and make history. And Curacao, although they head home, I mean, they at least got their first point in World Cup history in the 2nd match against Ecuador. So it's a great moment for the smallest nation ever participating in the World Cup. Certainly not this match, but for Ivory Coast, it's a great moment for them as they're now I believe they're the smallest nation. I was reading this. They are the smallest nation by population to make it to the elimination round. They're at least in the top 3 on that aspect, but great for Ivory Coast.
Yeah, I mean, Ivory Coast has looked great this tournament. I mean, they could have won all 3 games if we really wanna dumb it down. I mean, they had that Germany game all the way till the very end, and they had a chance at in stoppage time to get one past the keeper there, and striker kinda just messed it up, took too many touches, but yeah, this is a deadly Ivory Coast team that I wouldn't wanna see if I am, Norway, because this is gonna be a lot tougher than people think. They have attackers, and they play an aggressive style of football, and I love it. I think that Diomande is a threat. I think that, the, goal scorer Pepe is a threat as well. I think that this team is really good and surprised a lot of people in this tournament. They looked dominant today. Like you said, Curacao kinda looked defeated, but Ivory Coast knew what they had to do today. They weren't messing around. I know 2-0 is not the most convincing of results, but they played this game a lot better than 2-0, and I think that, it was just a great win for Ivory Coast, and they've should be very proud of themselves in this group stage. They've set themselves up for a great round of 32 battle with Norway, and that game might turn out to be one of the best in the round of 32.
So I did mix up the stat. It's Cabo Verde that is the smallest nation by population
makes
ever to
sense.
make it to the knockouts, and we are going to recap that there as well. But yeah, Ivory Coast with their history, and I think it's if I remember we talked about this where they made the group stage. They've been in the World Cup I think 3 times. Let me make sure I got that right. Yep, this was the third. Yeah, they were the group stage. The best result they had was third in group stage out of the 3 times that they've been a part of the World Cup. And now for them to go to the knockout stage, I mean, I know we talked about how this it's one of those that Norway against Ivory Coast seems like a favorable match to Norway, but it's still one of those where the sky's the limit for the Cinderella team in a way. So congratulations to them, and still huge credit to Curacao. I mean, one of 4 of the first-time nations participating in this FIFA World Cup, and for them to tie with Ecuador especially in the way that they did and holding as strong as they could, especially with Eloy Room and the clinic he put on as a goaltender throughout the first 2 matches. I mean, he was incredible. So Ivory Coast moves on. They play Norway in the round of 32. Continuing along, Japan, Sweden. I tell you, this is, oh, by the way, I think we did not formally name these on the last podcast, but just to make sure, in case anyone needed a hard evidence on the predictions, not like anyone needed it. Let's see. I had predicted, where did I put this on here? I predicted 3-0 Bosnia over Qatar, Canada 2-1 over Switzerland. You're seeing how wrong I am at this point. Morocco 4 over Haiti, over Haiti 0. 3-1 Brazil over Scotland, Korea 3 over South Africa, Mexico 2-0 over Czechia. Drew predicted Bosnia 3-0, Canada tie with Switzerland 2-2. Morocco 3 over Haiti, Brazil 3-1 over Scotland, Korea 3-0, and Mexico 2-1. So we had a lot of the similar score lines, but some of them more obvious than others. Today I predicted Senegal would win over Iraq. France would draw with Norway. My God, I was wrong with that one. Spain 3-1 over Uruguay. Cabo Verde 3 over Saudi. Belgium 2 over New Zealand. And Egypt would draw with Iran. I was right on that one, which
You're
we'll
right on
get
that
to
one.
that, but I was right. And then Drew said France 4-2 over Norway. Senegal 3-0. Cabo Verde 2-1. Spain 3-1, Belgium 3-0 over New Zealand, and Egypt 2-1 over Iran, which you came very close to the score being right, but not in that stuff.
Yes.
Anyways, to make sure we got all that stuff out of the way. Japan, Sweden. This is one of those. I think we talked about it. You thought it was going to be a tie. I think I said that maybe Japan would find a last-second goal on this one, and this is what is reassuring me about this tournament, of how, especially with the expanded teams, that you have a lot of these heavyweights who are going at it in the group stages and showing you that how dangerous they are going to be when we head into the knockout phases of the tournament. And Maeda of Japan, this was one of those tales of two halves. First half, you had one yellow card, one substitution for both sides, which is also kind of weird because Ko Itakura was substituted off in the 39th minute, and the captain change happened there, which has seemed to happen a couple of times in the last couple of group stage games. But Maeda opened up the scoring in the 56th minute, matched by Anthony Langa. What was that, 6 minutes after the goal was scored, and then kept tied from there. And fortunately for Japan and Sweden, they didn't have to worry about too much because the tie didn't make a huge impact on them advancing. But pretty even game between these two, and I know they're very, very thankful that they're on the opposite sides of the bracket.
Yeah, I had this game as one of my matchups, probably the matchup of the day, honestly, just because I knew that Sweden has looked slightly what's the word I'm looking for?
Sluggish?
Blanking. Inconsistent. Inconsistent because, they won their first match against Tunisia 5-1 and then turn around and lose to the Netherlands 5-1. So that balance isn't really something. Now, the Netherlands are a great team, and I'm not, faulting them for that, but a little bit of an inconsistency there. I think Japan, on the other hand, has kind of looked pretty dominant so far. Tying the Netherlands is a huge feat, and they did that, and then they obviously had their way with Tunisia. So I was expecting them to come out of this game and play harder because they could have still finished top of the group had they beat this Sweden team by more than 3 goals, but they didn't. And Sweden looked really impressive. That goal that they had was incredible.
Yeah.
Left-footed from outside of the box, curled around the Japanese goalkeeper. It was a unbelievable strike, and I think this game was very balanced. It was one of the most balanced games so far that I've seen in the tournament, and I think that a draw was probably the fair and correct result.
Not only that, I don't think either opponent that awaited for the winner or second place in this group is really one that either would desire, because you ask the question of both coaches, who would you rather face, France or Brazil? Would you rather face Mbappe or Vinicius Jr.? I don't think there's a good answer to that in the grand scheme of things, especially with the performances that both of those teams had in the following days. But it's one of those that, again, neither of them really. I know Sweden was fighting a little bit more for their round of 32 lives in a way, but Japan was content with the draw. I mean, it's grand scheme of things, it's just one of those matches where, like I was saying, both Japan, both Sweden, dangerous going into the round of 32, especially that section of Brazil, Japan, Norway, Ivory Coast between those two that has to get whittled down to the quarterfinals. Genuinely, I don't know who's going to escape from that at this point. I got to cook on the prediction side when we get into the actual bracket predictions in a way. But and I know some people might be saying, why are you counting in Ivory Coast, their Cinderella run, and they're going to have tough match going against Norway? I mean, it's not like March Madness. Cinderella run still can happen in the FIFA World Cup.
Absolutely.
It's not like the NIL side of things, because everything's very much level on the world's beautiful game. So, but I would say congratulations to one of these teams, but they both tied, so there's not really one to give a congratulations to. Pretty dead even on all the stat lines for them as well. Actually, the one thing that stuck out to me in this game, Sweden, 8 corners, Japan, 2. So the fact that Sweden did not score any more goals here is a credit to Japan's back line and also to Zion Sakuzi, or Zuki, sorry, and his goaltending that he was able to do throughout the matchup, which we love goaltenders, especially when they step up and do the right things.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's the name of the game. I think your goalkeeper or goaltender, as you like to say, is that's your backbone. And I thought both goalkeepers honestly played pretty well this game. No complaints with really either of them. When you're getting peppered with corners like
Yeah.
Japan's goalkeeper was, it's never easy. And I saw him a lot of times during the match get frustrated and kind of get on his back line, which is what you're supposed to do as a goalkeeper. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it's and very important.
Both teams advanced to the round of 32. France versus Sweden in New York, New Jersey. Japan, Brazil in Houston. And fun fact of note on that as well, with the tie, Sweden gets an extra day of rest. Japan plays from when this episode publishes 2 days from now. So that was also a little bit of a thought on that. But again, does it really matter if you have an extra day of rest against France or you have 1 day of rest less than Brazil? Like it,
I mean,
it really doesn't make a difference on that. But anyways, Tunisia, Netherlands. This game, I don't even think there's that much for us to say about it, Drew. Like, it's just very much predictable. The Netherlands wanted to win the group. Brian Broby knocked one in 7 minutes in the back of the net to set the tone. Well, actually, let me backtrack. What set the tone was an own goal by Ellis Shaqiri in the 3 minutes into the game. It gave the Netherlands the early lead, and then at the 7-minute mark, Brian Broby decided, you know what? Let me get this feed from Virgil van Dijk, and let me go ahead and just put no doubt that we're not caring about this match. We're resting our starters. It doesn't matter, any of that kind of stuff. Let's just go ahead and make it 2-0 at halftime, and then we could try to at least have a control. But let me tell you, Tunisia did not want to go down without a fight. As Hazim Mastouri, 54-minute mark, managed to cut the lead in half to 2-1, trying to have some redemption. And then Jean-Paul Van Heyck, 62 minutes, not even a full 10 minutes after that cut in half shot was made. 3-1, Netherlands takes it down, and it just shows you again, is this a Netherlands team that's dominant? I mean, for every 2 shots they were taking, Tunisia was only taking 1 shot, so very much in their favor. 71% of the time is when they possess the football, so this is one of those matchups where we knew Tunisia was going to try to be prideful for their nation, but the Netherlands just wanted to win the group.
Yeah, and I think everybody expected them to. The only surprise of this game is that I'm surprised that the Netherlands didn't win by more. I think
Yeah.
that they did choose to rest a good bit of their players. I love that they set the tone early, going up 2 goals in the first 7 minutes of the game. I thought that was huge, putting any doubt in anybody's mind that this group was theirs. You know, they played great in all 3 matches. They won this group fair and square, and they get to play Morocco in the round of 32. I'm not sure how much of a reward that is, but yeah, Netherlands are a great team, and they looked dominant in really all 3 games. Even the Japan one where they drew 2-2, I think they looked dominant. And this is a team that's built from the back. They have one of the strongest, tallest, most well-rounded back lines in the entire world, and think that translates to their attack too. They have some really good talent on this team. Gakpo has been in form recently, so this Netherlands team is going to be a dangerous one. And like we've talked about, that matchup with Morocco in the round of 32, I mean, not easy at all. That's going to be one of the games to watch out for. But that being said, this Netherlands team is built for these moments, so I have that, going in their favor.
I almost wondered if the Netherlands were going to try to do some 3D chess of their own, because their matchup, granted, it would not have been an extra day of rest, but both the top 2 teams from Group F were going to play on June 29th anyway. But they play at Estadio Monterrey in the round of 32. So another one of those outdoor, close to the equator, very hot. Or they could have gone with Japan, where they're playing Brazil in Houston, where it's climate controlled. So I wondered if maybe there was some 3D chess going to go on there. If they're like, you know what, let's go ahead and go indoors a little bit and get, for at least for the minimal rest we have, at least we don't have to be sweating uncontrollably. But, it's just one of those where at the end of the day, you talk to the players who are on the pitch, none of them are really thinking about that stuff in the grand scheme. Maybe the coach says something or tries to do some strategies, but at the end of the day, a lot of them are playing for salaries. They're playing to win. They're not trying to think about any of the sort of like, oh, we could do these opponents or that kind of stuff, because for the most part, unless, of course, you're Erling Haaland, who is saying, oh, France is probably going to win the whole thing, be realistic, which it's like I guess it's refreshing hearing that from a player in a way where they're honest, but it's still one of those like, really? You're really just going to openly say we're going to lose if we're being realistic? But, it's But we're talking about the Netherlands. We're not talking about Holland and the Norwegian national team. But anyways, Tunisia makes their exit from the FIFA World Cup with at least they managed to score 2 goals. I'm surprised they even got a goal against the Netherlands or got a goal against Sweden. Really, throughout this matchup, throughout this entire group stage matchups, but they continue their trend. They've only had 3 wins in a total of 9 appearances in the World Cup. They have not gotten past the group stage and have not managed to record a tie on that aspect. But congratulations to the Netherlands. You get to play Morocco in the opening game of the elimination phase. But the consolation, I guess, if you could say, whoever wins that matchup between the Netherlands and Morocco, they either have Canada or South Africa. So
That's
I
an
mean,
easier game.
yeah, it's interesting how that stuff plays out. And it's in Houston, so you get to be indoors again and climate controlled. So, but anyways, Netherlands will be preparing for Morocco regardless. Okay, let's go Paraguay, Australia. Interesting one, especially when you think about how Australia was, they shut out Turkey. They got shut out by the United States. And then one of these were both teams they needed to try and win to punch their ticket to the next round. And, Paraguay as well, they got embarrassed by Team USA in their opening matchup. And then when the second one, they managed to win very narrowly against Turkey. This was one of those classic defensive matches that I had appreciation for. Not a whole lot of opportunities, combined 19 attempts on goal, combined 7 on target, total of 4 corner kicks between the two in the San Francisco Bay Area. So, I mean, it's one of those that, now granted, I was watching it partially on the monitor when I was down in Los Angeles, but still one of those, when you look back at the highlights, there were some chances, not a whole lot of issues in the grand scheme of things. But now, in hindsight, I'm sure that Paraguay and Australia are thankful that they tied instead of one being out over the other, because they're both now in the round of 32. But still a pretty interesting matchup, even with no score.
Yeah, it was a little suspicious because it's like, I mean, both of these teams knew a draw would benefit both. But I'm joking. Obviously, I know they didn't make any little deals before the game, but yeah, I think that this was one of those classic soccer matchups where it's heavily defensive. There wasn't that many opportunities. I do think Australia led a little bit more in the category of creating chances and trying to build off of the group stage they already have. And yeah, I think it was just one of those kind of games where both teams were okay with the draw because they knew that if 4 points gets you a ticket to the round of 32. And I think the game went about as I expected it to go because I did have a draw. So yeah.
Not only that, the goal differential would have killed them on the 3 points on that. At least it would have killed Paraguay's hopes because they were already sitting at -2, and they would have gone down to a -3 on that. With Australia, they would have been a -1, so they could have gotten in on the tail end for that. But you know how we said about, oh yeah, you won your group, Netherlands, you get to face Morocco? Yeah, you guys tied. Paraguay, you get Germany in the first round. And then Australia, you get Egypt. Now, granted, Australia gets to rest a little bit more, which I know the scheduling is just kind of, they space it out and it's just kind of a random draw in those things. But Paraguay plays on the 29th of June. Australia plays on the 3rd of July. So extra rest for Team Australia pretty much on the weekend of Independence Day in the United States. But we're going to get into it with the Egypt-Iran match. But those matchups in the round of 32, I hope, are good and not as one-sided as they might seem. I think the Australia-Egypt one can actually be interesting, especially with the momentum Egypt's had. But Germany-Paraguay, I'm not so sure on that one yet, but we'll see how it goes. All right. So I guess congratulations to both teams on a tie. You both got in and moved to the round of 32, which I guess grand scheme of things, I don't know if anybody would have realistically picked this Group D to have three teams escape from it, but it's good for them. Speaking of Group D, are you freaking out about this loss with the Team USA and Turkey A? I mean, it was kind of so usually I go down to the mix zone like about at the 70-minute mark and get my place and get stationed and ready to go. Because at the 70-minute mark it was tied 2-2. I'm like, you know what? Let me stick around. Let me see how this plays out. And not only that, it's also Team USA the last couple of times has taken an hour plus to get to the mix zone. So we've been waiting for them a whole bunch. So shout out Team USA for making sure they use up all the hot water in Los Angeles and Seattle. But it was seeing that goal go in. Like when I saw the play set up where they were starting to charge down, I'm like, this is unless this is stopped by Turner, it's not. This is not being prevented from being a goal. And sure enough, I was right. I mean, Kanayan, great awareness by him. And I did talk to Matt Turner after the game, and I asked him just from another goaltender to goaltender, like, how do you tactically get coached to put yourself in that? And he mentioned that yep, his exact quote on that was, if that play is not representative of the last 18 months for me, I don't know what is. And he talked about how he felt he was the best person in that moment to go for the ball and to charge after it. And he felt that he could get to it. And then obviously it, kind of nutmegged him as he was charging at it. And then defender kind of left the far post open. All that aside, though, great start for Team USA with Austin Trusty in the opening 3 minutes to score. Otto Guler matched it, and then Alpervalis Yilmaz going up with a 2-1 lead in the half. Sebastian Berhalter within 4 minutes of the second half on that great shot he had. And obviously the whole cheering of Christian Pulisic, everybody giving him a sort of LeBron James moment or Tom Brady moment when he's coming onto the pitch and everyone's, so excited for him to check into the game. A lot of celebrities that came out, great time in Los Angeles, even with the Team USA loss. And I think I was even more interested, Drew, about Coach Pochettino in the press conference where he looked at everybody and said, why have not one of you congratulated us for winning the group and you're being more critical on this stuff? I get as media, we're supposed to be critical. We're supposed to do these kind of things. But if I were in the press conference, but I was more interested in the mix zone, if I were in the press conference, one of the first things I would have done is said, hey, coach, congratulations on winning the group. And then ask my dang question. Yeah, I should do that at the next press conference that he has for like a match day -1, maybe just to make him laugh.
Yeah, so to answer your first question, I'm not freaking out, but I am sad that that happened the way it did. Because if the game would have ended 2-2, it would have been it would have been 7 points, and we would have all known that we rested our players against Turkey A because we already had the group won at that point, and we didn't play our full strength team. Obviously, there was a lot of missing pieces, but even bringing Pulisic on, I love doing that, and Dest and Freeman and like all these players that Coach Pochettino brought on. He wanted to win this game. Like he wanted to get that third goal. So I would have been fine with it ending in a draw. I am a little bit disappointed that it ended in a 3-2 loss because I just don't want it to kill the momentum that we had because we're about to enter the phase where it really matters. And I hope this doesn't bring us back in a sense. So yeah, hopefully that's not the case. And hopefully we battle in this game with Bosnia, but I do like our side of the bracket. I do think that Bosnia is a pretty favorable round of 32 matchup. We will see who awaits us in the round of 16. But yeah, overall, very, very proud of the United States, and they did what was expected, but they took it up another level, I would say, in this World Cup.
I think I'm just very concerned about the depth of this team as we get into the dog days of the elimination phase, especially because we mentioned it, about like 6 to 7 of your starters who are on the bench. Now, a decent amount of them because of card related issues. I'm sure that the number would have been less if that was not a factor. Which by the way, it looks like Berhalter, I guess they gave him a yellow card on there because I didn't see anything. I thought the United States played a completely clean game on there. I guess I was mistaken on that. But Berhalter, the only one with a yellow card as compared to, like 4 or 5 that Team USA had in their matchup against Australia, which that was expected, physical game anyways. But I'm just more concerned about the depth, especially when you have a lot of other teams, not just Belgium and Lukaku, but in terms of like other teams that have depth on the bench of guys who are really making a difference. Like I'm hoping that this kind of practice game in a way was beneficial for the subs and gave them more awareness, and Pochettino and his staff will make the adjustments that are appropriate on that aspect. But I do hope that, like you said, it's not a momentum swinging the other way. But yeah, in that section of the group, I mean, Bosnia is the first match. I think, who is it? Buddy colleague Josh Graham had said there is no excuse for the United States to lose against Bosnia and Herzegovina. I mean, Bosnia is still a decent team, especially for them to get to the round of 32. But it'll be interesting if it ends up being Lukaku on the other side of the pitch in Seattle. That one might be a little more concerning when it gets to the round of 16. But for congrats to Turkey, eh? I mean, especially with their nation having a huge amount of, and rightfully so, issues with their horrible performance in group play here. For them to at least go back with a win against the host nation, that at least gives them some sort of, hey, we managed to do this, even though the game didn't matter for us to get into positioning. We at least got something done against one of the host nations. So it's it's very much one of those matchups that, grand scheme of things, doesn't matter. There's not a lot of stuff that people need to freak out about, but we'll see how it plays out going down the stretch here. All right, continuing along on matches we had yesterday, Senegal and Iraq. Another one of these, not much to talk about. I mean, Iraq, I think, for 2 games straight has gotten a red card, or at least 2 games out of the group phase, they got a red card, and they were down a man on their advantage. And Senegal just didn't want to put any doubt that they were going to the round of 32 and just completely. They also didn't want to put any doubt that if they were a third-place team, that goal differential would be an issue. So I'm impressed with the Senegal teams. Like I mentioned, I think that they got some really dangerous strikers up front. It's in a huge case, Pape Gueye with he had 2 goals and ended up getting a yellow card without physical. He was being through the game, but close to a hat trick on that aspect. But yeah, they just pelted Iraq with shot after shot, 28 shots, 12 of them on target. I mean, 12 corners. Iraq only had 3, not to mention Iraq only had 6 shots and 1 attempt on goal. You hate to see a team just completely get pummeled in a tournament like this, but Iraq was just, unfortunately, one of the teams that, even though they were not the lowest ranked in the field, New Zealand was. It's just disappointing when you see a team like Iraq just completely get pummeled, and you know that whichever one they're going to face off against in their group is just going to favor the opposition instead of Iraq.
Well, goal difference is the name of the game, and I think that Senegal was out to prove a point today with their goal difference. I think first of all, they had to win to even qualify for the round of 32, but they did it in such a convincing way. I mean, a 5-0 win, and they had like 20 something shots was an absolute just display on offense today, and they needed it, especially after Iraq got that red card. I think it was so crucial for Senegal to capitalize on that, and they did. They did not let off the gas today, and they knew they had to win convincingly to improve their goal difference, and that is exactly what they did. And because they did that, they are most likely going to advance to the round of 32 now, which is something that in their minds, in this group of death, with France and Norway, I mean, this was a tough thing to do, and the fact that they were able to beat Iraq the way they were today is really impressive. And like you had mentioned earlier in the episode, their strikers have talent, and this Senegal team is dangerous. Watch out, whoever gets them in the round of 32.
Yeah, and Senegal did clinch that, by the way. It's Sweden,
Good.
Ecuador, Bosnia, Paraguay, and Senegal. They are confirmed as the 5 of the 8 that are going in. It's just we don't know who their matchup is yet, which still a couple of pieces of the puzzle that'll be figured out tomorrow on that. But yeah, Senegal again. That was part of why they. The other thing as well from their matchups, their goal differential after that game +2. So they were at -3 heading into the day, and that's why there was that sense of urgency, especially when they realized, oh, there's a man disadvantage with Iraq. Okay, we know what we have to do here, and a majority of that was they were already at what was it? They were already at -2 against France, and then a 2-3 heartbreaking loss to Norway got them at -3. And it wasn't like they were getting blown out like Iraq was in all their matches. It was just your first 2 matches were France and Norway, like
Yeah.
especially in just a really tough draw for Senegal. And the like I said earlier about the whole iron sharpens iron thing, I think that's very much the case with Senegal. And I would not want to be any of the teams potentially facing off against it. If Senegal gets into, because they're Group I think there is actually a scenario. Let me make sure I'm right on here. Yeah, they could be the 3rd place team against Belgium. They could be on the same side as the United States in the round of 16. I don't like that matchup if that happens, but they have to get through Belgium first, obviously. But regardless, Senegal, congrats. I don't even know if there were any haters or doubters with the Senegal team, even though it was, close matches with Norway and France. But you're into the round of 32. You just don't know who your opponent is yet. Oh, Uruguay. Do I even dare to open up this conversation, Drew? Like, look, I get Spain needed several bounce backs. This was going to be a tough matchup for either side. Spain did all they really needed was a tie, because going into the day they had a good amount of points and good momentum on their side. Like, they were sitting at 4 points. So at a bare minimum, they were more than likely going to get into the round of 32, especially because their goal differential was at +4. So unless Uruguay blew them out and just completely marked it down to the negatives, like, Spain was fine. But something about when you get a rivalry between national teams like this, man, and especially this was the only matchup in the group stage that featured 2 former World Cup winners. And I mean, I think it kind of showed, but the main problem in this matchup was that goal came off of a really horrible goaltending mistake by Fernando Muslera. Like, and here's the thing: as a goaltender, the reason I say it's a mistake is because my coach, and I've said this on the podcast before, screamed his lungs out anytime I would not catch the ball. And this is one of those cases where, and he just misread it, and like he's trying to bat it away or try to get it to the ground so it's at least saved out. But the fact that he was sort of angled down and the ball bounced back, that's where it was so bad, because he misread it in a huge way. And that cost Uruguay a trip to the knockout stages of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. And you hate it that it ended that way, but it's also on the fault of Uruguay's strikers and midfielders, because they couldn't get it down to the other end of the field. Like, Spain possessed the ball 68% of the time. And this is hard to believe, Drew. total attempts on goal combined, 11. Total attempts on target on goal, 2. Like, we had a total of 11 shots between these two teams. Spain barely led by 1. Not only that, Spain had 6 corner kicks. Uruguay had 1. So Spain could have easily run up the score and taken more opportunities. But look, I hate it for Uruguay, at least, especially for a goaltender to be the reason that the game was lost. And that halftime substitution was appropriate, by the way. Good move on the coach to not make that substitution immediately, because that just completely shatters a person's spirit and they never recover from it. It was a necessary change, but man, Spain, they somehow win this group, even with the way they started out against Cabo Verde.
Yeah, first of all, speaking for Uruguay, they lost this group when they drew to Saudi Arabia and Cabo Verde. They shouldn't have been ever. They should not have ever been in a situation where their last group stage game against Spain, they need to win to advance. They should never have put themselves in that situation, because that was the hardest path they could have possibly taken. You know, to have to win against one of the world's best teams is never a situation you want to be in, especially when you had Saudi Arabia and Cabo Verde in front of you before Spain. You needed to take care of business then, not now. And that is only the fault of Uruguay's. And I don't understand what went wrong for them. It's like they never really found an identity. They never really played together. The mistake that Muslera made in goal today against Spain was really disappointing. It's like it was such a tough shot by Spain as well. I mean, he was fading back on his right foot across his body. He didn't even look at the goal before he took the strike. And I don't know if Muslera was trying to, like you said, like push it away, or he just misread it. I'm not sure. It was very poor goalkeeping, though. And the ball ended up in the back of the net. And credit to Spain. Spain looked really dominant in that Saudi Arabia game, but I'm not entirely, I don't want to say I'm not entirely convinced, because Spain is Spain. They have so much talent. But as far as being considered a top team, you know, and the respect that a lot of, you know, other nations give them, I'm not sure that I'm that far convinced on Spain, but only time will tell with that. They won this group. They were expected to win the group. Uruguay was a huge disappointment, probably for where they were ranked, probably the biggest disappointment in this tournament.
Yeah, I agree. But that has to be the biggest disappointment of this tournament. And we would probably be saying it'd be a close second between them and Ecuador if Ecuador was not able to get through to the round of 32. But man, and Spain is just waiting. They're waiting to see who they're going to face off against. And the fact that Spain is in the same quadrant potentially as Colombia or Portugal, that's where it's going to be a real test on if they have a chance, especially a team that was favored to win this entire tournament. The fact that they're going to be potentially against either of those teams in the group, or more than likely against Austria or Algeria in the round of 32 is just interesting food for thought to think about as we get into that elimination side. But we give our flowers. Congratulations to Spain. You managed to win on a very thin margin of score of 1-0. And you guys play in Los Angeles on July 2nd for a to-be-determined opponent. Cabo Verde, Saudi Arabia, indoors in Houston. And, whoa, I mean, Cabo Verde is just, again, one of these, I mentioned the smallest nation by population to ever make the knockouts. Saudi Arabia was in another one of those situations, too, heading into the day where they needed a W to make sure that they got to the next round, or at least gave themselves a chance, because it would have been 4 points, and more than likely they would have gotten in. Cabo Verde would have been out because they would have been with 2 points. But credit to Cabo Verde. I mean, tying the heavy favorites in Spain, tying Uruguay, keeping themselves reasonably alive. Like the fact that again, Spain, Uruguay were the heavy favorites to be the top two. I don't think. Let me look again at this. I think this team is more than likely going to be If not, they are. Let me just double check on the numbers. They are the only, yeah, they have the lowest amount of points to get an automatic bid. Like hands down, because they're at 3 points, and the rest of the field is at 4 points for the third place spot, and the rest of them are above that. So, it again, I've been saying this whole Cinderella thing didn't even have to get a goal. Like, it would have been great if this was even a 1-1 matchup between Saudi and Cabo trying to fight for their round of 32 lives. But my goodness,
They should have got a goal.
would any I don't think anyone in in covering this tournament would have told you, "Oh yeah, 3 points, that'll get you to the round of 32." I don't think anybody would have said that even in this qualifier stuff, but hey, I mean, all you got to do is tie, right, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, I can't say enough about Cabo Verde's path because I mean the first time in this World Cup and you come out and you draw all 3 games and you finish second in your group. I mean that is such an amazing achievement for such a small nation and a first time nation. It's so special to watch what they've done. I love the culture and the commitment that this team has. They honestly should have won tonight's game. Obviously, they were playing in a little bit of like a sense of we just need a draw, but we don't want to risk losing because if we lose, stuff could go horribly wrong. We would be eliminated. So they were playing for a draw in a sense, but they also wanted to win, and they created more chances than Saudi Arabia did, and should have put some in the back of the net. There were some wide open shots that Cabo Verde was just missing. They were not executing in the final third like they should have been, but credit to them. They played so determined throughout this whole tournament, and they took advantage of an Uruguay team that failed to produce at the level they should. And Cabo Verde's first ever World Cup, they made it to the knockout rounds, and their reward is playing Lionel Messi in Argentina in the round of 32. So maybe
Yeah.
a short-lived Cinderella run, but we'll see.
The other thing I will say is for Saudi Arabia, I mean, for them to tie with Uruguay at the start as well, the fact that we had several groups that were in this World Cup that on day one of group play, all 4 teams had 1 point. Like it was a testament to how competitive this was going to be down the stretch. But I was at that Spain Saudi Arabia match. Spain came out with a vengeance. They just had a full desire of, we are not going to let the noise overwhelm us. We are not going to crumble here. We are going to shut down any of the opposition. And that's what they've done in a way. I mean, again, 1-0 victory against Uruguay isn't too convincing, but I mean, 4-0 against Saudi Arabia, they got it done, and they added in even more depth to their goal differential to make sure that they could put themselves in a good position to win the group. But yes, you're right. For Cabo Verde, I mean, in Miami against Lionel Messi in the opening round on a Friday night on 4th of July weekend, that is not a match I'm going to request a match ticket for, because I know very well that trying to figure out the logistics on that getting down here, like I'm already here for Colombia, Portugal, and everything was reasonably priced. But for that, no, that ain't going to be reasonably priced. So I'm staying away on Friday night Lionel Messi competition because I know better on that. But regardless, Cabo Verde, just a great story. I don't, part of me wants to say I hope it continues, but it's also, I would be robbed of the chance to see Lionel Messi play again. I say all of us would be robbed of the chance to see Lionel Messi make a deep run in here. And a lot of us are hoping that it plays out the way it should, and we would have a meeting between Messi and Ronaldo for one last time. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, because it's not just that Messi has to get through Cabo Verde or Cabo Verde has to get through Messi. They also have to get through either Australia or Egypt, probably Egypt in that one. Or there's also Switzerland in the lower section of the bracket, which it's a dangerous Swiss team. So there's a lot of stuff that has to play out on that. But congrats to Cabo Verde. I mean, tie all 3 games to get to the round of 32. Literally nobody else in this tournament has done that, so congratulations on that aspect. New Zealand, Belgium. There's just
About as how I expected.
why do they keep giving us these one-sided games to recap, Drew? Like, why do we keep having to do these such one-sided blowout games? But yeah, it played out the way that you thought it was going to. I forget exactly what my prediction was on it, but Belgium was going to get a goal eventually. I know there was a lot of noise around. Well, this team isn't putting as much production as they should. Is the golden age dying? Are they starting to fade down and such? I will say, I know that the Belgium-Egypt game was a tie because one of those was an own goal. But this Egypt team's not one to be messed with anymore. They've shown that they are legitimate and they're here to stay in a way. And we'll get into their match against Iran. That was just a great television. But Belgium, the fact that Lukaku has continued to, and he got started in the last game against Iran and they tied. He couldn't get anything done. So Lukaku off of the bench is the move. That's the only way that any of this stuff is going to work, which I guess he just can't play a full 90 minutes. Like, I guess he has to he has to digest his lunch or something, and it has to actually pump through his system. But and the reason I say that is, and it's not just Lukaku, by the way, like Leandro Trossard with the 2 goals to make it 2-0 to set out the tone first, and then Kevin De Bruyne at the 66th minute and Elijah just tried scoring 1 goal, but way too late on that aspect. It was just trying to save worse for wear. And it actually kind of helped on the group standing stuff with Egypt, Iran, which we'll get into that in a little bit. But I guess Lukaku, you have to bring him in off the bench instead of, I guess that basically for Belgium's coach, Rudy Garcia, I guess that means now what you have to do is think, okay, I got 5 subs. No, I got 4 because we have to bring in Lukaku later on in the competition. But, just a dominant win by Belgium, and New Zealand gets sent home.
I think this was a game where New Zealand's FIFA world ranking really started to show. I think they just did not look like the dominant team tonight, and I expected this to go Belgium's way. I feel like Belgium was hungry and mad that they haven't officially scored a goal yet. You're Belgium. Everybody talking about the golden age of Belgium is dead. And honestly, they were proving that narrative correct in the first 2 games. So I think they were going to come out aggressive and hungry. And I don't think this New Zealand team could handle it, and they couldn't. Allowing 5 goals is never something you want to do. I do think that Belgium needed this. First of all, they won the group, which is great for them after starting really sluggish. This just goes to show you how much of a slugfest this group was. But they won their group, and I think it's going to give them great confidence going into the round of 32 and potentially a round of 16 matchup with the United States, which would be a little crazy. I feel like we played Belgium before in the knockout rounds back in 2014. Back in 2014, we saw how that went. So. But overall, Belgium, great win. Like you said, Lukaku off the bench seems to be the route that they should go. I thought Kevin De Bruyne played a lot better this game as well. And yeah, just a dominant win by Belgium.
Lukaku was in that 2014 game, by the way. Don't remind me on that kind of stuff. But yeah, the New Zealand's rank showed. Belgium outshot them 35-6 overall. On target 10-2. So a ratio of every time you get a shot on target 5 times, you're going to score once. 20% success rate on target shots. Like, what do you expect is going to happen on that aspect? But yeah, I think you're right. Belgium needed this, especially with the tie against Egypt, the tie against Iran, where no offense production could happen on there. And it's another one of those where they allowed another one of their teams from the group to stay alive in the chase for a 3rd place spot. But we'll see how it all plays out. But New Zealand gets sent home at least on that aspect. But congratulations to Belgium. They're off to the same quadrant of the bracket in the same exact section as the United States. They await their third place opponent. I mean, if it's Senegal, I don't know, man. But
Yeah, it's tough.
and Egypt will face off against Australia. And the reason they get to face off against Australia there is because they tied with Iran on the scores being set. Holy crap, Drew! This is probably one of the best games of football I've watched in a long time,
Mhm.
and because it had everything. You had Sabir Mahmoud scoring 5 minutes in to set the tone. Egypt's looking like the dominant team. You had a chance for this to be tied for Iran, and Mehdi Taremi missed a penalty kick, which we seemed to have several of those. Like, I think we had two in one day, or two in the last 2 days of missed penalty kicks, when those should be gimmies in a way. 3 minutes later, Ramin Rezaeian scores to finally tie it, and then we go into halftime, and it's just kind of quiet. On the goal scoring metric, you've got a couple substitutions. You got a yellow card for each side. And then the stoppage time, that final sequence, I am so glad they have the 3D mapping technology to show this kind of stuff about onside, offside, because by the letter of the law, yes, offside. By literally a foot. Like, my foot size is 12 and a half wides. So what that tells me is that I can't be a forward, because then I'd be offsides pretty much all the time by just like a step. But this, it had drama, it had excitement, it had scoring on both sides, and both teams. Now, Iran has not technically gotten in yet. I think we were saying this earlier, that they sit at 6th on the 8th place spot. They have a goal differential of 0. Croatia can push them down a rank if they basically score, if they win by 2 goals. Korea Republic is scrambling right now. They are scared because they're sitting at 8th and they're -1. Algeria is at -2. It's so weird that technically so Scotland is -3. They're 10th, but they're still not mathematically eliminated, which is kind of weird to me. I guess it's because there needs to be another 4th place, another 4-point team that gets in. Or maybe it depends on what Congo DR does. I don't know. But basically, Iran, because of this tie, they put themselves in a decent position, but it's also Croatia and Algeria are the main outliers here, and Congo DR, who have still got their game coming up, by the way. But Egypt, Iran, what a classic matchup to not only send Egypt to the knockout round, but to give Iran some very realistic hope that they can make it to the next round.
This was a great game. This was a game that, went back and forth, could have gone either way. I do know that Egypt dominated possession in this game as we expected them to, and as they should have. I'm a little disappointed they didn't end up winning this game. I feel like there was a lot at stake. They could have won their group, but stuff doesn't go your way sometimes. I feel like credit to Iran for drawing all 3 games. They were, they battled in every game. They had a lot of outside distractions too. Amongst their group stage games, and they ended up battling in each one and coming up with a point in each of the 3 games, and I think that's very crucial for this team. And going back to Egypt, I feel like they created a lot of chances, but just didn't put a lot of shots on target. That was a little bit of a ratio that concerned me a little bit. They had 15 shots and put 3 of them on target. I think if they're a little more consistent and the execution is a little better in the final third, things could go a little bit differently as they prepare to play Australia in the round of 32. But we will see. I think it's going to be a good one. It's going to be really fun. But credit to Egypt for proving that this year's team is a lot different from that of 2022 Egypt.
We haven't mentioned it once today, but I have to give the officials their flowers. Seizman Marcinak was the head referee at the 2022 World Cup final, and he showed it yet again, with how the officiating did not interfere with this
Not at all.
matchup that they very much, as the third team on the field, they called what they needed to. They made sure they were keeping things composed, especially in the high stakes drama throughout the entirety of the game, and making sure they got the calls right when they needed to. Man, I love good officiating when I see it, and that was certainly what happened between Egypt and Iran. And it had to happen that way to make sure that everybody was, kept in line. So that recaps your matches on there, and we head into the final day of group play with the final day of 6 matches in one day. Oh boy, and we got some really good ones for you. Well, we'll start out with Panama and England. There is an update officially because of the results of all the rest of the matches today. England automatically has a berth in the round of 32. It's just a question of where they go. So the question now comes down to, if you're the coaching staff of England, do you want to win the group? Do you
Yes.
do you try to rest your starters like the rest of these teams out, like Norway did? Like, are you playing a strategy move? Because if you win the group, you're in Atlanta. And we did talk about this on the last episode about the playing in indoor stadiums and having that sort of potential benefit of like where they would play in Atlanta, but then if they are winning the group, then they play at Mexico City Stadium, then at Miami before they could, fortunately, and again, assuming they win on all of those. But if they're 2L, they play in Toronto, which is much cooler. They play in Dallas indoors. They play at Los Angeles, which has at least a roof. It's, hot, but it's not bad. And then indoors. So that's, again, the question of, does England want to go for first place here where it's blazing hot down the stretch and to be in the same corner of the bracket as Brazil, Japan, Norway, Mexico? Or do they want to be in that same section of the bracket as Spain, United States, Belgium, at least as of now, and potentially
And
either Colombia or Portugal?
I can tell
Um,
you what they do not want to do is play one of Colombia or Portugal in the round of 32. So I do think England will come out in this game and try to win it.
Yeah. All that being said, I'm taking England to win this one. I don't think I think Panama is their spirit is broken. I don't think they're still on a quest to get their first World Cup point. It's not going to happen against England. They're on a mission. They want to win. I think this one goes to this is another one of those circumstances where England wants to be a Senegal, but we're going to use that now. We're going to say be a Senegal, where they don't want to put any doubt in the goal differential aspect. So, but I don't think it gets too out of hand. I say 3-0 on this one.
I actually bang on agree with your score prediction. I think that England's going to come out in this game and really look to take control of the game and the group. I think this is a huge opportunity for them to bounce back from that draw they had against Ghana in the second round of the group stage. I think they come out looking dominant. I'm going to go with a 3-0 win as well because I do think they would much rather win the group than have to settle for second place and their first round matchup being a Colombia or a Portugal. That's what they definitely don't want, and especially on a bracket with the side of like Spain and other top talent over there. I don't think they want to deal with that. I think they're going to come out in this game and be focused. And yeah, I'm gonna go with a 3-0 win.
Do you face off against the top talent in cooler environments, or do you face off in the other section of the bracket where you're going to be melting?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a which it's basically a lesser of two evils on England's
Yes.
side. But yeah, I agree. I think they try to win the group so that way they can have potentially more favorable matches against some other opponents. But Ghana has also qualified for the round of 32, and they face off against a Croatia team who is desperate. We mentioned it on the third place standings right now. Croatia is 7th. If they lose, especially depending on how much they lose by, it could be very detrimental to their stakes. Several teams would be happy about it, but this is a Croatia team that had a tough loss against England, barely escaped against Panama, and now facing off against a Ghana team that has looked a lot better than a lot of folks thought they would going into this group play. And the fact that they tied with England as well shows you that they already know they're going to go on to the next round, but I have a feeling Ghana, they want to win the group, which if they win, they would have to win by a minimum of 2 goals. They have to win more than how much England would win more. I don't know if they're going to do that, but I think Ghana will put up a good fight against Croatia. I think it'll be tight. I'm going to take Croatia in this one, Drew. I think it is a well-fought battle between these two, especially because neither of these teams wants to be a third-place team, not knowing exactly where they're going until the final whistle blows. I think both these teams, even though they know Colombia or Portugal is on the other side, I think they have a very serious mindset of we would rather know who we're going to play and prepare for that instead of just leave it up to the draw in a way. So, but I think Croatia, because they have not automatically qualified and how much more motivation they have to be better, I think they win by, I'll go by a score of 3-2.
Yeah, I agree. I think Croatia is, like you said, desperate. They desperately need these 3 points. I think that they all realize that they snuck by against Panama and had a really crushing loss to England, but they didn't look like themselves even in that Panama win. I feel like I wasn't convinced at all by them. I think they need to remind us that this Croatia team has talent. Ghana's not an easy team to face though when you're needing a result like this, because we obviously saw what they were able to do against England. So I think this is going to be a pretty close game. I do think Croatia is going to come out more aggressive just simply because of the desperateness they are going to have in this game. I'm going to go with a 2-1 Croatia win for them to I'm going to say that England wins 3-0. So I'm going to say Croatia finishes second in the group.
Yeah, and Ghana would still move on the third place side, but it just depends on where they fall. If they lose, you say 2-1, right?
2-1 Croatia, yes.
Yep. So that would put Ghana at a 0 goal differential with still 4 points. And based on that, they would move up to Bosnia Herzegovina is already confirmed on stuff. So I guess that would put them at 4th, probably, or 3rd on the third place sides. Now, I'd have to look again and see exactly where they go on that stuff, but that would at least put Croatia on the second place, and we know they'd face off against Portugal or Colombia. All right, continuing along, Algeria and Austria. This is one of the more interesting ones for me, Drew, because especially when you think about how Argentina's already claimed the group. Algeria, Austria, they're both fighting for the second place spot. And I think if I'm not mistaken, is this winner go home? It could be because of the tiebreakers. I think for Algeria, this is win or go home because they're at a -2 goal differential. For Austria, especially with how tough of a loss they had to Argentina, 2-0. I mean, Algeria, the same thing in the opener, 3-0. And, excuse me, they just could not have a response to Lionel Messi. Same with Austria. I mean, who can really have a response to Messi in the grand scheme of things? But I think that Algeria, Austria, it's going to be very tight. This is going to be one of those that goes down to the wire. I say this one ends in a draw. I'll go with a 1-1 draw between these two. And based on that metric, Austria would still win the group because they have a 0 goal differential.
So I went back and forth on this game, and I don't know if what I'm saying is rooted in much facts or anything like that, but I have a weird feeling, and I don't know why. I feel like it's going to be a 1-1 game throughout, and the dying embers, because they are going to be the slightly more desperate team because of goal difference. I think Algeria is going to get a late stoppage time game winner to advance them into the round of 32. I think it's going to be crazy. I don't know what kind of goal it's going to be, but I think they're going to get a stoppage time winner and win this game 2-1. This is a huge game from, so many different perspectives. And I think that both of these teams realize what it's like to face a team like Argentina and to face a team like Jordan. Although Algeria had to battle back in that Jordan game, that game was not a given. It was a very tough one, and Austria looked pretty good against Argentina and, Jordan. I think Austria probably is the better team. I just have a weird feeling that Algeria is going to get it done, and I'm going to say a 2-1 winner, and it's going to be a crazy heroic goal.
Speaking of Jordan, and I do agree, if dying embers in terms of goal, we love it. We would love to see it if it happens on that aspect. Argentina, Jordan, I, what does Argentina really have to play for in this other
Well,
than, I guess,
I know
pride?
they're benching Messi, so
Yeah, because there's literally no point in playing him in this competition. It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, even with Messi out, I say 2-0. Like, I mean, this is one of those that genuinely it does not. This is honestly one of those games that I don't even know if I'm going to watch. To be
it does.
honest with you,
Yeah,
if it's like on in the media center, well, by that point I'll be either getting out of the mix zone or trying to head back. Yeah, I'll still watch it just because, we have a podcast and we want to recap this stuff and everything, but like I'm going to be half paying attention to it. I'm mostly going to be looking at that Algeria Austria game because that's the one that matters. But I'd say 2-0, like I guess without Messi in there, but it's just you hate it for Jordan, especially because they could have gotten as a first-time participant. They could have gotten their first World Cup win and World Cup point against Algeria with how close it was, but I just I don't I don't see him winning this one. I really don't.
yeah, I agree. I think Argentina's still going to dominate even without their main man, and I agree with the 2-0 scoreline. I think this game is just not really that important for either team. I mean, Jordan's already eliminated, and so is and Argentina's already advanced. So I think this is going to be one of those Argentina rests a lot of their top players and their star talent, but Argentina's bench is still better than Jordan's starters. So I'm going to go with the Argentina 2-0 win.
Believe it or not, mathematically, Uzbekistan can still make it into the round of 32,
Yes,
even
believe
though
it or
they are
not.
sitting at 0 points. There's a lot of help they need, like a lot. Like Ibrahimovic said something like this. If, I think he said, "Qatar need God, and I'm here." So it's
Yeah.
it's kind of that similar thing of like Uzbekistan needs divine intervention in their first World Cup to be able to head to the next round, especially because they are not getting any favors with this -7 goal differential. But Congo DR, they have technically not qualified yet, but if they get these 3 points, they get a really good position, even with having a -1 on that aspect, because right now they're sitting at 12th, but that's only because they have 1 point and the rest of the field have three. So I think Congo DR, at least as it stands right now, if they win, they're pretty much in. They just need a couple more goals to help solidify it on that aspect. I think Congo DR handles this very comfortably. I'm going to say 3-0. I think they punch their way to the round of 32. They send Uzbekistan home, even though the hope was very minimal for Uzbekistan heading into the day. But I think Congo DR, I'm not going to say they're a dark horse in the round of 32, but they could really shake some heads, or even, dare I say, because of how physical they play, it could be one of those players who gets shaken up in the round of 32, a star player for a team, and might have to sit out in the round of 16, which there are a lot of other physical teams that could do that in this round of 32 anyways. But DR Congo, I say 3-0, and they could shake some heads in the elimination round.
DR Congo is a very sneaky team. We saw how they played against Portugal in that opening match. This is not a team to just like brush to the side and think that they're not going to, play at the level that people wouldn't expect. I do think this game will be a little bit closer. I actually have Uzbekistan scoring first, and then I have DR Congo battling back and scoring two, and ending up winning the game 2-1 and getting a crucial 4 points that would honestly, like you said, I really do believe this team can shake some heads in the round of 32, depending on their matchup. And yeah, I think this is going to be a huge way for them to prove that. Uzbekistan is very beatable. We saw that with how Portugal handled them and with how Colombia handled them as well. And I think that, I think DR Congo will take full advantage. 2-1 victory is what I have.
Not only that, this would be their first ever win at the World Cup in their second participation. What a win if it could send them into the elimination round as well. Would be incredible. The match not only of the group to take the title, the match of the day or of the evening since it's happening in the evening, but this is the matchup that has been circled pretty much on everybody's calendars. Take out the United States matchup in the group. Take out some of the other great matchups that have happened in the group stage. But this is by far the matchup of the group stage that everyone has been looking at and knowing that it would come down to these two teams in Group K. And I was actually looking at a post on this just to give even more context to the folks who are listening or watching. It was actually this was from The Athletic. Tickets for Portugal's game against Colombia in Miami have been so in demand that even head coach Roberto Martinez had to place an order early in order for his family to be sure of attendance. The Group K match was subject to 5 million ticket requests in the first 24 hours of the random selection draw in December. Sources with knowledge of the process have told The Athletic that it was the most wanted ticket of all 72 group stage games at this summer's World Cup, and some tickets on resale sites such as StubHub have been listed for more than $6,000. And that's where even Coach Martinez, quote, "Well, it means I had to buy tickets for my family in November. That's what it means because I knew it was going to be difficult to get tickets." And, I texted John Strong about this. He and Stu Holden are on the call for this one. I told him you talk about privilege in sports media. It is an honor that myself and John and the rest of the Fox Sports people and everyone who are covering this match, we do not take it lightly that we're witnessing what's going to be the match of the group stage, which I know they can't schedule it at 10 p.m. on the East Coast because it just no one would watch it, even though it's a late Saturday night. But this is the match of the group stage, and it feels like a game 272 in the National Football League, like of a send-off to finalize the brackets pretty much. Now, Algeria, Austria will have a huge follow-through to, following act is the term I'm looking for. I think the bounce back that Cristiano Ronaldo had was necessary. He almost got a hat trick. He was trying to go for that to match Messi. Mbappe was trying to do that himself as well. And a lot of the stars, when they need to show up, they start showing up. And I think the DR Congo match was a wake-up call. And I think that he has found his rhythm a little bit and has gotten back into his stride. For Colombia, I mean, James Rodriguez, he has not scored a goal yet, which is shocking, especially because he was, the heart and soul of this team. I mean, Luis Diaz has. I mean, Daniel Munoz has started showing up, and those are really talented top-tier players on this Colombia national team that are worth their weight in gold. Having said that, I think this is the matchup that Cristiano Ronaldo shuts down the haters and says, we, Portugal, are making the run and we are starting our campaign to go to New York, New Jersey and bring a World Cup back to Portugal. Now, are they going to do that? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that this is the match that he says we're starting this campaign. I got Portugal winning this one. It is going to be close. It's not going to be one of those 0-0 throughout the entire matchup where it's just defensive heavy and such. This is going to be a 2-1 matchup, in my opinion. I think either Munoz or Rodriguez scores the lone goal for Colombia, where they find an incredible opportunity to do so. But I think Cristiano Ronaldo, he either scores the opener or the game-winning goal, and it helps reassure people that I am who everyone thinks I'm supposed to be. So Portugal's taking this one in the night lights in Miami.
Yeah, I think this is a huge opportunity for Portugal to, look at this game and really they haven't been tested that much yet. A lot of people after that game were like, "Oh, it's Uzbekistan. Of course you were supposed to win 5-0." I still need more from Portugal. I still need to see more. This is the test. Colombia is a great team who got put in this group. These are two great teams. This is one of those like Brazil Morocco group stage matches where it's just like two unbelievably talented teams going at it. This is one of the best matchups we've seen so far. I cannot wait for this one tomorrow night. And I think that it's going to go in Portugal's favor too. I think that this is going to be a true chance for Portugal to dominate and show that they have the best midfield in the country. I'm looking at Bruno Fernandes. I'm looking at Bernardo Silva a little bit. He didn't get a lot of action in their game against Uzbekistan. And yes, of course, everybody's looking at the big man, Cristiano Ronaldo. I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong in this game, too. A lot of people said, oh, well, he scored because he played the Uzbekistan defenders. Like I said, Ronaldo cannot create like he used to, but what he can do is be in the right place to score goals. And that's what they are going to do. I'm looking at Leao on the left side for Portugal. I'm looking at Nuno Mendes, the left back. I think that there's going to be so many different factors in this game. I do think Luis Diaz for Colombia will get a goal as well. And I actually have this going as a 3-2 match, a little bit more high scoring in favor of Portugal. I think Luis Diaz scores. I think James Rodriguez scores for Colombia. And I think that Ronaldo gets one. I think Bruno Fernandes gets either one or a pair. And maybe I'll say Leao on.
I almost took this one as a 3-2, but I like the drama feel
Yeah.
more of a 2-1, and I think
You know what?
it's
I was actually going to say 2-1, and then you said it, so I was like, I'll go 3-2.
I love the drama feel more of this matchup, and I like the idea of it being just a lot closer than people think. And not to say that 3-2 isn't a close matchup, but when you
Of
have the
course,
higher
yeah.
scoring, there's a little less of this angst, especially among the crowd there. Like I am so excited to see how these crowds come out for Colombia and
That's going to be
Portugal,
awesome.
especially in Miami, where it's a very rich culture of the Hispanic Latino community and a lot of fans of Ronaldo, a lot of fans of Messi, certainly with Inter Miami CF. It's going to be a ruckus environment. But man, we are at the end of group play. Can you believe that, Drew? We're at
Already over halfway. It's
yeah,
crazy.
and we're at pretty much about the start of where we get to the round of 32 and start to really eliminate more teams that have already been eliminated. But man, it's crazy. And you got air conditioning this time. Isn't that great?
I'm back in my setup. Thank the Lord. Yeah,
All
this
right.
this one went a lot more smoothly than the last one, but yeah,
Well, yeah, and you got the microphone back on the soccer balls
of
and all the good
course.
decor in the
Of course.
back. Yeah, the back. Are those flags removable in the back?
They are actually. They're stickers, believe it or not. They're stickers on a big like little bullet like board. So yeah.
I was gonna say you might want to start with the teams that have been eliminated. You might
Yeah,
want to you
I
might want to
actually
start
should.
taking them down.
That's actually smart. That's a good thing. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, you got some time to do that later, but appreciate those of you who are listening and tagging along for another great edition of the NSMA 2026 FIFA World Cup podcast. Check the links in the description for how you can support the podcast and follow us on our social media. And we will continue along to recap the final day of group play once we get to it, and then give our previews for what's set to be a carnage-filled round of 32. For Drew Williamson, all the hardworking men and women that make this run so smoothly, and a special shout-out to Thibault for joining us again. I'm Spencer Thompson saying so long from various parts of North America. Happy final day of group play in the World Cup 2026 as the bracket gets finalized for the round of 32. Hey there, thank you so much for listening or watching the NSMA 2026 FIFA World Cup podcast. A special thank you to our Platinum Insiders, the Banzet family, Robert Eggleston and Jason Edmonds, for their support of the podcast. If you'd like to support the podcast and my journey to the 2026 FIFA World Cup, the link is in the description. Not only are all donations potentially tax deductible, as the NSMA is a 501c3 nonprofit, but you also can get your name here on this graphic in the description, and you could get some exclusive behind-the-scenes content. Appreciate those of you who have donated so far, those who are going to donate, and hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast during the 2026 FIFA World Cup.